taken by a given individual without care for anyone else. And it certainly seems to me like dating apps like Tinder. Now, I don't want to call every male who's successful on Tinder a psychopath. I'm not saying that, but I would say that it isn't obvious to me at all that if you're a successful polyamorous male on Tinder, and so that's going to be a very tiny subset of men that are hyper selected by women, a tiny subset of men who receive almost no rejection, they're set up to learn to be psychopathic because all their interactions with other people can be devoted to short-term sexual gratification with no emotional intimacy or long-term commitment.
I mean, again, Jordan talking like that's the goal of all relationships is this intimacy and emotional fulfillment. Well, it isn't. That would be a feminized way of thinking. But like, does Tinder create psychopathic men? I don't know about that. Maybe Tinder favors Machiavellian men who want victory at any cost, so to speak, right? But are Machiavellian men psychopaths? Like, these are two different terms. So I don't know about that. Yeah, I think this is off the mark, actually.
And that's a hell of a training ground as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it depends on what you want for a society, but as you said, even the affluent women who profess a desire for polyamory, which is complete bloody rubbish in my estimation and completely underestimates the economic consequences of sex, they still dream of the fairy tale princess who meets the prince who, wakes her up.
That's right. Actually, that's exactly how it works. These girls, so many of them in 2022, what they do is they hook up. They sleep with Chad after Chad after Chad when they're 18 to 28. And then after that, the princess narrative kicks in and says, I want my Prince Charming. I want a guy to come and take care of me. I want a guy to be the guy that is the one, right? Not realizing that those actions that she's taken are the very things that make her unable to get that very guy that she actually wants. It's sad, really.
The kiss and are married happily ever after. So it's such bloody nonsense. We allow our culture to be run by the pathetic fantasies of immature adolescent delusion, fundamentally, as far as I can tell.
No, I agree entirely. I think the Disney fairy tale garbage needs to go away. I think all men need to understand women's nature, and I think they need to make their decision based on women's nature. And I think also that this womanist hogwash of everyone is equal, everyone's the same, everyone should be liked and treated equally, and all of that, like, yes, everyone has equal value as a human being, but not everyone has equal value on the bedroom fund marketplace. Not everyone has equal value on the relationship marketplace. And as a result, women need to understand when they're most valuable and when their value is declining. They need to understand that before they decline. Because a lot of girls, they have this epiphany phase, right? Like they get to 30 and they're like, oh my God, I can't attract Chad anymore. What's wrong? Where have all the good men gone? Well, all the good men are back in your 20s where you left them. These girls need to be taught at 14 years old. Like, when you're 20, that's when you should be getting married and having children. Like, when you're 25, when you're 24, not when you're 35, 36. Like, it's not going to work. If you do that, you're going to be miserable because you will have wasted your prime fertility on short-term gratification and ruin your life. And it's true. Our society is run by this pathetic fantasy that you can have it all, you can get everything you want. You can get everything you desire. You can have your bedroom fun with Chad, and then when you're older, you can have the marriage and the perfect family and the perfect children with no disorders and etc., etc. And that's not how life works. And especially women in 2022 need to be taught this. They need to be taught this at a young age, not at the age of 30. Hello and welcome. to the Helios blog. My name is Helios, here for another reaction video. If you're new to the channel, liking the content, hit the sub, hit all for notifications. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon with exclusive content, patreon.com/theheliosblog. Just go there and subscribe to any tier. Any level of support is appreciated. Here we're looking at this video, Sex and Dating by Rob Henderson and Jordan Peterson. Again, I'm just commenting on it. Enjoy.
There was a study I saw, I think it was last year, on this very question of who uses dating apps and sort of their personality traits and so on. And they did indeed find, and these were just university students, which, you know, take it for what it's worth, but the people who were using the dating apps, which is about 1/3 of the students in the sample pool, they were sort of more likely to be interested in short-term sexual conquest, not really surprised, more interested and more likely to use drugs and alcohol, more likely to have sort of callous sexual attitudes. I can't remember the exact term they used for this construct, but basically they were more likely to agree with statements like sex is like a game where one person wins and the other person loses.
Oh, that's called Machiavellianism. Yeah, that's for sure. And interesting, right? But again, what can you say? So dating apps are like, I think 60 to 70% men, like 30% women or something. I think it's like 60-40 or so, maybe 70-30. And the women that do actually get with guys there choose a very small percentage of those men. I think it's 4.5% or something, very tiny. And they choose those men. They choose the sociopaths, they choose the liars, they choose the scammers, they choose the Machiavellian ones, they choose the hot ones, they choose the guys with a million options, they choose the guys who won't commit, they choose those guys. They don't choose the other guys, they choose those ones. And the guys who kiss women's ass and, you know, do whatever they want and, you know, buy them nice like $200 dinners and are friends first and all that other stuff. They choose those men when they're 35 plus, when they're not in their sexual prime. So, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know.
So if you're using a dating app, you're more likely to say yes to that kind of question. So in a way,
well,
I think
you know,
you're right.
there's a status element to that. I mean, there's the old trope of notches in the bed frame. And among competitive adolescent males, there's no reason. There's every reason to be competitive about how much you can drink and how many people you can lure into bed. I mean, even if you don't necessarily believe that personally, you know, at a deep level, and maybe you suffer for it emotionally to some degree, even though you might obscure that from yourself, it's certainly something to score points with your peers. And there's plenty of that kind of, you know, that competitive bantering in adolescent, especially adolescent male culture. And I mean, it's not surprising to some degree because adolescent males have to figure out how to navigate the sexual landscape, and they're going to do that in all sorts of awkward and finally unproductive ways. It's not an easy thing to bind or to regulate properly, but I mean, these technologies like Tinder is a transformative technology.
Agreed. In fact, what does Tinder do? Tinder is a facilitator for women's hypergamy, right? So again, women want the best men, the top 20%. Actually, it's more like the top 5 or the top 10% now. And so Tinder allows women to swipe super quickly on a giant population of men, and out of those, pick the top 5%, right? So quickly. Because before, in order for a girl to have as much selection as Tinder gives her now in 5 minutes, she would have to spend 5 years, right? But now with the technology, it's allowed the mass production effectively of attention, and there's more. There's also Instagram, there's also Snapchat, there's also TikTok. All of these also facilitate the same thing, the same female hypergamy. And so it's no surprise at all that so many men are invisible to these women, and as a result, the marriage rate is 6 out of 1,000. Because again, most men, they see how expendable they are to women, how useless, how worthless women see them. And as a result, they don't want to get married. And then these women complain. They're like, these guys aren't economically attractive. These guys aren't physically attractive enough. These guys aren't, not realizing that the apex men, which is only 5% of the population, are such outliers. It's absurd, right? Like, the average man is the average man, just like the average woman is the average woman. But the average woman has so many choices that she thinks that she's above average. And that's why you get this effect called the 49er effect, right? You get girls that are 4s, you know, that are not so attractive, thinking that they're extremely, incredibly attractive just because of their options. And it's a lie, right? Of course they're not as attractive as they think they are, because, and also then these girls, you know, they have access to a bunch of chads on Tinder. If they sleep with one, that's all it takes. 20 minutes on a Wednesday, once in her life, and that's the guy that she thinks that she's entitled to for a long-term relationship, marriage, and to have children with. That's the reality. The reality is these girls would rather be with a Chad for 5 minutes than be with a non-Chad for 5 years.
And it's radically underestimated in terms of its potency, because it produces hyper-successful predatory males.
No, it doesn't produce the predatory males. Women actively select for predatory males, so it doesn't. They were already produced. It doesn't produce them. I disagree with that. I think that's wrong. I don't think it produces predatory males. Okay, let's go to this article here by Rollo Tomasi. Rooting through garbage. So again, just look up The Rational Male if you're curious about reading this article. Help! I messed up big time and I want it back. How do I get it back? Easily one of the most common questions I feel that it's so suave over the past 7 years has been some variation of how do I get it back? It's common for a reason. At some stage of life, every guy believes that rejection is worse than regret. Lord knows I tried to recover an old lover or two in my own past. Whether due to infidelity on her part, your own, or a regression back to beta after initiating a long-term relationship, there is one iron rule you should always refer back to. It's always time and effort better spent developing new, fresh perspective women than it will ever be in attempting to reconstruct a failed relationship. Never root through the trash once the garbage has been dragged to the curb. You get messy, your neighbors see you do it, and what you thought was worth digging for is never as valuable as you thought it was. Even if you could go back to where you were, any relationship you might have with an ex will be colored by all of the issues that led up to the breakup. In other words, you know what the end result of those issues has been. It would always be the 800-pound gorilla in the room in any future relationship. As I elaborated in the desire dynamic, healthy relationships are founded on genuine mutual desire, not a list of negotiated terms and obligations. And this is by definition exactly what any post-breakup relationship necessitates. You or she may promise to never do something again, you may promise to rebuild the trust, you may promise to be someone else, but you cannot promise to accept that the issues leading up to the breakup don't have the potential to dissolve it again. The doubt is there. You may be married for 30 years, but there will always be that one time when you two broke up, or she slept with that other guy, and everything you think you've built with her over the years will always be compromised by that doubt of her desire. You will never escape her impression that you were so optionless you had to beg her to rekindle her intimacy with you. And there you go. Okay, back to the video.
And reduces rejection. It eliminates rejection, because, I mean, you can be totally rejected, in which case you're a failure on Tinder. But in normal pre-mating interaction, let's say, there's a high probability of rejection, especially on the part of males.
Yep.
And that technology...
Well, there's actually research on this.
Yes.
On Tinder.
Yes.
So there's research basically showing that. So on Tinder, women are they like, you know, swipe right, they like the profiles of only 4% of the men that they see on.
There you go. 96% of men are seen as below average. So I don't know if you guys know about how men and women view attractiveness. So men view attractiveness on a bell curve, you know, like most women are okay. There's a few that are super attractive. There's a few that are very unattractive, right? Women don't view attractiveness on a bell curve. They view 80% of men as below average, and the top 20% are on a bell curve. So the top 20%, sorry, the bell curve of the top 20%, they find the top of that as attractive. So just think about that for a second, like how selective these girls are. And they get ever more selective after having access to these apps like Tinder and etc. Because it facilitates that aspect of their nature, right?
On the app, whereas for men, when they see female profiles, they swipe right or like more than 60%. That's 60.
That's right.
60% of the profiles they see.
So that's really worth concentrating on, because that's a great example of hypergamy.
Right.
Right. So women mate across and up success hierarchies, and men mate across and down. Right. So, and women like men who are about 4 years older.
And he's not mentioning the looks part. It's really funny that he's talking about Tinder and never mentions women's short-term bedroom fun strategy, right? So, again, here's the idea. Women have they have a dualistic mating strategy, right? So what they do is they have alpha seed and beta need. So when they're young, they want to get Chad. They want to sleep with the absolute most attractive, most successful man they can. And later on, when they need security and long-term provisioning, then they go for beta Billy, right? So hypergamy on Tinder refers to chasing Chad. And actually, if you look, because I have done many Tinder profile analyses, right? If the girl is 18 to 23, almost unequivocally, she refers to sleeping with Chad in some way. It's always short-term promiscuous references. And as she gets older, as she gets past 25, but especially past 28, then the profile changes. Then the profile is, I'm a cool girl, I want to be friends, I want a serious relationship, I want la la la. It's dualistic mating strategy. And Tinder is definitely a facilitator for the alpha seed side of hypergamy. So sleeping with Chad, that is what Tinder does. It facilitates that.
Cross-culturally, they like men who manifest signs of success, as well as being handsome and personable and all of that. And the reason for that, as far as I can tell, is that they're looking to equalize the economic disparity that exists because women take a harder hit from sex and pregnancy than men. So they're looking to equalize that. And no wonder they're looking for someone who's competent. This is for long-term mating, who's competent.
1 second,
generous.
my phone,
Right,
my alarm is ringing.
So competent.
All right, I'm back. 1 sec.
This would be intelligence, general cognitive ability, and the markers that go along with that. They want conscientiousness or openness, as well as other desirable personality traits. And they want generosity.
By the way, notice that she's talking about notice that Jordan is talking about long term. He has not mentioned short term. That's because Jordan doesn't even understand the short term mating strategies. He's only been with 1 or 2 girls in his whole life, so he doesn't understand like the real thing that's going on Tinder, right? Like the crazy hookup culture that, by the way, only women and Chad participate in. It's like 80% of women participate in hookup culture and 5% of men. 4%, according to like the data here.
Honestly, all of those. But so they're looking for someone who can provide. Well, it's not because they're greedy precisely. It's because, well, they're going to put themselves in a more vulnerable position if they have a child. And we know this because even affluent women who have a child by themselves or who get divorced tend to drop down the socioeconomic hierarchy a fair bit, which is, of course, why alimony payments and all of that are necessary. So this
No. Okay. So, these alimony payments, you can't just casually say that alimony payments are necessary. How about you change the laws to be when the marriage ends, when the relationship ends, the kids go with the father. How about that? And no alimony. How about that? No alimony, no child support. Again, these are the reasons why men aren't getting married in 2022. Tinder, Instagram, Bumble, Hinge, Snapchat, plus alimony and child support. All of these coming together and men feeling like they're useless, like they're garbage, right? Like they're less than, because these girls are only selecting the top 4% of men for bedroom fun when they're in their prime, and then later on when they've had their fun and they're quote-unquote ready to settle down, then they're interested in the average man. Well, the average man doesn't want a girl who's, the town bicycle that everyone has had a ride on. Like, that's the state of the world right now.
Hypergamy means women are much more selective in their mating than men are, and that's true cross-culturally, and it's not surprising because they pay a bigger price for sex. It's more dangerous for women because they can get pregnant, and it might be more dangerous emotionally as well. And I believe that would be a reflection of their higher levels of agreeableness and higher levels of negative emotionality. So women do put themselves at risk more, and that might be why there's such a intense debate about what constitutes consent on campuses, despite these beliefs in polyamory and all of these things. But so anyways, on Tinder, as you said, women select 4% of the men.
Yep.
So that means
and
that
I would imagine that 4% is very high up on what you're calling, you know, the success hierarchy. I have a friend, a good-looking guy. He was very active on Tinder for a while, and he accumulated more than 20,000 matches on the app.
20,000.
20,000 is
20,000.
crazy.
And he was so successful that Tinder pinpointed him early on and gave him all kinds of free perks and bonuses, and lifted his radius restrictions, gave him the Tinder Gold app or whatever version of it, basically trying to entice him to continue
Tinder
to use
did
the
that.
app. They wanted to entice him.
This is
Interesting. So that's what happens if you're one of the top men, right? But it's, again, to be one of the top men is like winning the genetic lottery, right? Basically. And it's funny, right? Because of course you want those men to be on the app, because Tinder is for what? Tinder is for facilitating hypergamy. It's for 80% of women, the top 80, which is most women, and Chad. So if you're Chad, of course they're going to reward you for being Chad.
so amazing.
They never want you to leave.
These are unbelievably pernicious and vicious broad-scale social experiments that are far more potent than anything like government policy.
True.
You
Well,
know, I mean, he's in Genghis Khan territory.
Literally.
I don't know if
I mean,
he
it's
if
really-
he slept
it's
with all
really-
20,000.
Yeah, well,
Maybe
my
10,000.
suspicions are he tried.
Jordan. Jordan, you jealous? Oh, man. Yeah. That's hilarious. That's actually so funny. I suspect he tried. Well, again, let's talk about this trying, mathematically speaking. So, I mean, if you're working and stuff, you have time to meet, let's say, one girl a day. So seven girls a week. So 365 girls a year. To get to Genghis Khan territory, you'd have to sleep with one girl a year for what? Genghis Khan slept with 5,000 women. So one girl a day for 10 years. Yeah, that's not like, no, it's not gonna happen. Or multiple girls in a day. That's like not possible, right? If you're working, unless you're very efficient. 2 girls a day for 10 years, and then you'd beat Genghis Khan. It's crazy to think about how many you would need to sleep with to be in Genghis Khan territory.
And I know
He'll get a kick out of that.
that records for like athletes, for example, and movie stars, there's some of the men have reportedly slept with thousands of women. Yes, Wilt Chamberlain, and there's others who are in the same category, but
that's the apex. That's Chad.
Have women throwing themselves at them all the time, lining up for them, and I've read biographies of people who had that sort of thing happen as well.
But that's not the typical male experience.
No,
the typical male experience.
Typical male experience is the following: 0 matches, not thousands. 0, none at all. 0. There is more virginity in 2022 for men than has ever happened. Like, more virginity today, and women are actually less virgins than before. It just reflects hypergamy, right? But listen to this.
Is all rejection.
All rejection.
Right. They might get a couple matches a week.
Right. So you see what's happening is that Tinder is one of the forces that's transforming monogamy into polygamy.
Right.
And the problem with polygamy is that it follows a Pareto distribution, like the distribution of wealth, is that some tiny minority of men get all the sexual opportunity.
Exactly. And that is exactly why the marriage rate in 2022 is 6 out of 1,000. That's why. Because polygamy follows a Pareto distribution where a very tiny percentage of the population gets most of the attention. That's exactly right. Hypergamy is a Tinder is a facilitator for hypergamy. 2022 in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen.
And all the rest get virtually none.
Virtually none.
That is a recipe for social instability.
Exactly.
That sort of deregulation of romantic relationships.
It's literally what's it called? The open market, like open capitalism, basically, but for bedroom fun. I've made this reference many times actually on the channel. That's right.
Whereas in the past it was expected for you to have one partner and over time settle down, whereas now it's a total free-for-all. I mean, there are aspects to this that a lot of people don't think about. I mean, I talk to young people, so I have younger friends who I talk to who are sort of very active on the apps and in sort of the dating scene, and they'll tell me things like it's even easier to cheat. So in the past, if you wanted to be unfaithful to your partner, it was risky because, essentially like you had the same social circle, you had the same friends, everyone knew everyone else. But now with the apps, you can match with someone who is completely outside of your social reality.
Right, exactly. And no one would ever know, basically.
Outside of your partner's social reality, you can have a very discreet rendezvous. No one will ever know about this. Ghosting has become more common. I don't know if you know about ghosting, but it's basically where you're in a relationship with someone, and after you have sex, once or however many times, then you just vanish.
Yep. That's right. And again, then these girls go on TikTok and complain, right? About those guys that they selected. Oh, man. Okay. We're going to read this article. It's, again, from Relationship Advice. Good luck, guys. It's going to be a doozy. My wife, 30 female, kind of cheated on me, 30 male, depending on your definition. My wife and I have been married for 4 years. Some good days, some bad on the time frame. For the past year or so, things have been rough. My wife sat me down a year ago and told me I work all the time and don't give her enough attention. To her defense, I do work a lot. That said, about a year ago when she sat me down and told me that, I really took it to heart and cut back my hours. I told her I loved her, my job is meaningless without her, and I genuinely have stuck to my more lax work schedule for this past year. There may be a day here and there that I'm working late, but it's not the norm and I've made sure of it. I truly did my best to be present every single day when we were both home. I would always make time to chat with her, help and or cook dinner, and do the dishes. This is just chore play, it doesn't work. Would tell her how beautiful she is and that I love her because I didn't want her to feel like I was dismissive towards her or not giving her time and attention. I can confidently say I'm a pretty good husband. And guess what? Those are the guys that get cheated on. Well, in comes a shitstorm. She's been very dismissive towards me, so I had to do something. I never thought I'd ever do as a married man, and I read her text messages. I did this only after having a very cool, calm, and collected discussion as to how she's feeling in our marriage. Things were off. Like, way off. She was defensive of the question, so I knew something was up. I'm not proud of my intrusion of her privacy, but I found that she's been planning to have an affair with an older man, 46. They've already kissed on a few occasions, been on a date or two, and are generally having an emotional affair. But the freaking text messages they send, I mean, damn, talking about some crazy bedroom fun messages. Not necessarily exchanging nudes, but just that what they want to do in bed with one another. It was hard to read. I mean, what more needs to be said, guys? That's not your girl. That's everybody's girl. That's a divorce. Confronted her and she lied. Confronted her again and she lied again. I took photos of the conversation because I had a feeling there would be denial. And even then she said she'd never actually take it any further than playful texting. Baby. Okay. She said she found solace in this guy because he gave her the attention I apparently did not. I mean, she already kissed the dude. I don't even want to relieve those text messages. By the way, she did more than kiss the dude. But needless to say, there are all sorts of bedroom fun fueled stuff. For about a solid month, the bedroom fun talk has been going on with this chump. Forgot to mention Mr. Chump is also married. I feel like an idiot. I'm embarrassed and oddly more heartbroken than angry. I gave this girl every bit of gas I had in the tank, and she sure as hell let me know it was not enough. What do y'all think? Do I just need to cut the cord as fast as humanly possible? Rip it off like a band-aid? I don't think this is salvageable, so I'm really just looking for advice on next steps. I mean, there you go. You married. Terrible girl. 3.3k upvotes. Rip it off like a band-aid. Will hurt for a while, but the quicker you do it, the quicker it will end. Yup. Show your proof with the guy's wife. It's the right thing to do. Research found that the kiss is the last boundary that once crossed leads to bedroom fun at the first chance. Therefore, there's no such thing as it was just a meaningless kiss. Yeah. So, if your girl says a guy tried to kiss me or whatever, that's she 100% slept with a guy. All right. We're going to end the video there. Again, if you're new to the channel, liking the content, hit the sub, hit all for notifications. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Patreon with exclusive content, patreon.com/theheliosblog. Just go there and subscribe to any tier. Any level of support is appreciated. Thank you so much for listening, guys, especially if you took the time out of your busy day to listen to the end of the video. You're wonderful, and I will see you next time.